Alright, hello people, welcome to another new Sensei Archery live stream. It is midnight in Melbourne, and while this is normally a bad thing, I do have the day off tomorrow. Today being Tuesday. See, Melbourne is funny because we have a public holiday for a football grand final, and we have a public holiday for a horse race. Today is Melbourne Cup Day, and it is a public holiday. So, great for the students who get a day off, although a lot of people get really nasty about having Tuesday off, but not Monday. I know some workplaces and some schools do make Monday an official public holiday, or at least a day off, so you have a 4-day weekend. I remember back when I was in school, we had a 4-day weekend, but of course, as a professional, you don't really get that Monday off. So you get this weird week where you have like Monday, then Tuesdays off, and then you have Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. It's a short week, but it's something that's kind of funny. So welcome to everybody on the stream. I'm just kind of mucking around with the settings right now. Hello from everyone, or hello to everyone rather. Now, for those who are checking in early or late, this video is available as an archive video on my channel afterwards. And those who are here live, welcome and welcome. Alright, so before I begin, a couple of odd things. I've just encountered this in my local milk bar, or for those who shop basically. It is Coca-Cola plus coffee. I was kind of skeptical about this. I'm not sure if caffeine goes worth of caffeine, and this is probably the worst thing to drink at midnight right now. But I thought, hang on, brown cap. You don't normally see that in Coca-Cola, but it's Coke with coffee. Now, I've been drinking for a bit. It's really weird. So that's basically your Coke, and a proper Coke glass too. This is the what is this? This is the Olympic Games. Yes, it is. This is the London 2012 glass. This is athletics, not archery, but athletics. Anyway. Anyway, when someone described it to me, the Coke coffee, or the coffee Coca-Cola, it tastes kind of like a spider. For those who know what a spider is, it's an ice cream soda. So imagine you have Coke with a coffee kind of ice cream kind of tinge to it. So it tastes like Coke, but the aftertaste is a bit of a coffee aftertaste. I do think that these things should remain separate, but it's not bad. It's different. What I find hard is that it's not why I drink Coke. I kind of expect something sweetish rather than a coffee flavor. That should keep me up for the next hour. So that's what's happening right now. But more to the point, what actually is happening right now? So, I'll take questions at the end, by the way. So, if you want to ask questions, feel free to say hi and tag my name, and I'll scroll through later. But what I wanted to talk about today was a topic which I've been kind of planning for quite a while, and since we're live streaming now, it's something I can cover live and talk through what's in my head. So, the topic for today is the Barebow myth, and I'm sure some of you might be expecting something controversial, and you're probably already smashing the dislike button. But what we have here is a serious discussion on where archery is in terms of current modern day competition. And the reason why I want to talk about this is a lot of people, especially on the internet, have a very grand and romanticized view of traditional archery. And I'm talking about not just barebow archery, but traditional barebow, like the old wood stick bow sort of thing. And I do admire and how this can be romanticized. There's something very pleasant. It's not nostalgia, it's just a pleasantness of shooting something which basically has been passed down for hundreds of years. And for people who are turned off by modern archery and modern technique and modern equipment, then this is the solution, is to shoot traditional. That's why many people shoot traditional. But there is something to say about how archery technique and archery technology has advanced over the last century. And a lot of people who did archery at the time probably liked this change. So for those who are still hanging on to the idea of traditional archery being competitive, this is something of a reality check. And this isn't meant to be an attack against trad barebow shooters or barebow shooters, but this is to debunk a certain myth that floats around on the internet and in people's minds. And the myth is that a traditional barebow shooter, or just a barebow shooter, can beat an Olympic archer. So if a trad shooter and Olympic archer competed against each other, then a really, really, really good barebow shooter can beat a trad shooter. And I just want to dismiss this myth in using the evidence which I'll present to you shortly. Now, I'm not talking about an average barebow versus an average Olympic shooter, or a really good barebow versus an average or bad Olympic style shooter. I'm talking about the best versus the best, because again, we have this notion that a person with a bow, if they're good enough, they're consistent enough, and they're accurate enough, should be able to hit that target. Now, mathematically, yes, they should be able to. But realistically, how likely is someone going to execute a perfect shot for 72 arrows or 144 arrows or double that? And what we'll see here are actually the national and world records for archery. The reason why I'm showing this is to show how much of a gap there is between the best Olympic archers and the best barebow archers in any given distance, and there will be a gap. This is not going to be a close match at all on paper. So again, while there might be a mathematical chance of a barebow shooter doing well, the reality is much, much different. Okay, so what I'm going to show you right now is the world archery record. So we'll switch over to Firefox. That's our fade. So what we'll see here, and I'll just shrink the chat window just a bit there, so for those who want to read that, I might switch it there. No, we'll do that way. Okay, so this is the world record from World Archery. Now, of course, there are other archery organizations apart from World Archery, but the reason why I'm showing this first is I want to demonstrate something specific. The thing with modern archery is that there's another myth that modern archers with modern recurve or even just compound, there's a myth that they never miss. And especially when you watch highlights on TV, or you watch just the world championships in world archery, you get this idea that they always hit gold. And what I'm going to show you here is, in fact, they don't always hit gold. And in some cases, they go nowhere near a perfect round, especially for recurve. Compound, it's a bit different, but recurve is a lot more brutal. So we'll show you why. Okay, so if we take a look at the records here, so we'll go through each one. I'll kind of point out the some of the really amazing feats, but also the interesting facts. Okay, so Kim Woo-jin, world champion, world rank 1 rank archer, at 90 meters shooting freestyle recurve, that's Olympic recurve, 36 arrows for a maximum score of 360. He got the world record, which happened this year, is 343 out of 360. That's at 90 meters, the furthest distance which is shot for outdoor target. So he dropped 17 points. That is insanely good. It is no mean feat to hit something that is less than the size of a DVD at 90 meters. That's amazing, but it points out that they don't always hit gold. You can fully expect someone to hit reds or blues even, but for this is the very, very best in the world. Choi Mi-sun, 70 meters, 70 arrows, female, and interestingly, dropped just under 40 points. And that's actually less points drop. Oh no, I suppose if you shoot like double the score, that would kind of equal out. So again, 687 out of 720 is a very good score, but that's nowhere near perfect. Nowhere near perfect. Now, 18 meters, Brady Ellison, American shooter, everybody should know who he is by now, indoor, dropped 1 point. Now, at 18 meters, you would think, hang on, with all those fancy gadgets and sights and stabilizers, you should be able to hit a perfect score. Well, no, like the world record for recurve is not 600. Now, for compound, it is a perfect score. And in fact, just recently, I think Stephen Hansen shot a perfect 600 in a ranking round. So it is possible for compound to shoot perfect, but even recurve, and this is decades after this format's been used, people still haven't reached a perfect score. That's as close as you can get without being perfect. In contrast, we have, interestingly, Kim Woo-jin again at 30 meters on a slightly bigger target. He did get a perfect score, 360 out of 360, but 30 meters is really close. This is what most people shoot at clubs, and with 26 X's, that's kind of dead perfect. You can't really beat that unless you get like 27 X's. And you can see like the pattern goes on, like Kim Woo-jin again, South Korean, 20 points down from his perfect score, 50 meters, that's 2 points off at 50 meters, 18 meters for female, recurve, that's 6 points off, so even the females have a hard time. And then look at this, compounds. By the way, that was Braden is a compound shooter, so he got 2 points off from 50 meters. 50 meter compound, that's, again, that's you expect perfection, but they're not. And you can see the pattern go on is like for most of these records, it is not a perfect score. So the idea that modern bows, whether compound or recurve, always hit golds is a bit of a myth in itself. They don't always hit golds. Now this doesn't mean they miss. A miss to them is like a 9 or an 8, but it's not like a complete miss. But the idea that that the top archers, it's too easy to shoot modern recurve or modern compound, that is definitely not true. And remember, this is the world's best we're talking about here. This isn't the average archer. And while we think about the skill level and the ease of certain types of equipment and disciplines, the average archer is not a world-class archer. You are looking at the world's best. Of course, they'll be getting consistently high scores most of the time. That's why they are the world's best. And we shouldn't judge and modify a sport because the top 10 in the world can shoot like 99% golds. Because remember, the rest of us have to climb up, and we're not going to get there to keep on changing the rules. In fact, there's a recent rule change, I believe. I'm not sure if it went through or not. They wanted to change the size of the 18-meter target, the 4cm target, by keeping the goal the same, but kind of changing the size of the red and blue. And that was controversial because it kind of didn't really make the top archers shoot any worse because they always hit golds. In fact, it made the entry-level archers have a harder time because they would hit more reds and blues rather than golds. So yeah, it's not as easy as it looks. And anyone who's actually tried shooting 70 meters with a freestyle bow or even a compound bow, even those precision shooting machines which should get golds every single time, don't. So that's the first thing I want to address, is that the idea that a modern bow is good or too good is not true. So let's go back to my point here. Now, what I want to discuss now are world records. I want to firstly look at the British records. We'll go out to straight British records. So this is from Archery GB, or the UK archery board. And by the way, hi to Grizzly Jim. He's probably watching this right now. What I want to show here is the disparity between different forms of shooting. So in this record list, we have Compound Unlimited, Barebow, which is modern target bows, but with no sights, Longbow, which is a specific discipline. That's what Grizzly Jim shot in the 3D championships, and recurve, which is the freestyle modern recurve. So what we have here are different rounds, sorted by gents and ladies and Sorry, this is the kind of round. So a Gents World Archery 1440, I believe is 36 arrows at 90, 36 at 70, 36 at 50, and 36 at 30. I believe. I can't remember off the top of my head right now, but the maximum score is obviously 1440. So if you take a look at the scores here, so if we take a look at well, compound firstly, like for regular compound or compound limited. Out of 1440, the record is 1417. That's insane. But for recurve, and this is more realistic here, gentlemen, recurve, out of 1440, max score is 1364. That's over 4 distances. The Barebow record, the national record, is 1082. And the longbow, for those who want to think more about traditional styles of archery, is 912. This is all the same round. Normally, a longbowman would not shoot the same round as a compound or recurve because that's not really fair for a local competition. But this is the national records. So the best, the highest scoring longbow shooter in the UK scored 912 out of 1440. That is still an amazing score for anyone who shoots a longbow at a 90-meter target and hits it. You're doing an amazing job. But this is the thing I'm trying to point out here, right? If people are going to assert, and this is going to be the same thing I'll say for most of the records I'm looking at. If you're going to assert that someone shooting barebow or someone shooting traditional has a chance of beating a competitive recurve archer, the numbers don't lie here. All right, we go back to our screen here, our records. So the recurve for men is 1364. The barebow is around 280 points below them. This isn't close. This isn't like a few golds off here. This isn't like in compound where one missed 10 ring is going to cost you from 1st to 10th place. The recurve shooter can literally shoot 5 arrows in the end instead of 6 and still win. The barebow does not come close. Longbow is even further behind. So what is 280? That is nearly 400 points off. 450 points off from recurve. If we go down to the other round, let's go down to let's see. I'm trying to recognize some of the rounds here. Okay, these are the single distance scores here. This is another interesting comparison. I believe the maximum score for this is 360. It's a 36 arrow end, I believe. I'm not sure about this one. I'm pretty sure it is. Yeah, it is a 36 arrow end. Maximum is 360. So let's say 70 meters. That's the Olympic distance on the big face. So let's compare these records. So for, again, recurve men, 348 in Britain. 348 is amazing. You're probably scoring 10s and 9s consistently. You're probably not even getting a red. It's just 10s and 9s, but not a perfect score. Even compound hasn't quite reached 360 yet. But barebow, again, same target, same distance. 348 for recurve, 293 for barebow. That is 50 points off. And then longbow is another 40 points. That's 90 points off the recurve world record. In fact, if we take what's the junior record? So the junior recurve is 336. So the barebow and longbow don't even come close to a kids competition. So it's the junior longbow is 87 out of 360. And this isn't because they suck, but that's really hard. It's not fair to compare junior versus junior, but comparing a junior recurve versus a senior barebow or senior longbow, that's a huge difference. In fact, look at the scores here, and imagine not many people in the junior ladies shoot longbow. So that's why there's a huge score gap between the kids and the adults. And the pattern goes on. If you go to close distance, and you might think, well, surely the trad shooters or barebows will be more comfortable at the closer distances. Well, let's look at 40 meters. That's a typical field round or 3D distance. So I'm trying to find, let's see, that's under 18s. Don't want to do that yet. 50 centimeter face, 50 meters, 80 centimeter face. So recurve, gentlemen, 345. You might know that's kind of lower than the other one because it's a smaller face. So 345 for gentleman recurve, gentleman barebow 280, and longbow 237. It's a consistent pattern across the board. Generally speaking, even at distances where the barebows are expected to do better in their own classification, they shouldn't compete very well against recurves, modern recurve. It just doesn't happen that way. The gap is way too large, and this isn't just in Britain. Though. If you take a look at the Australian records, you'll see a very similar thing. Now, this is organised differently, so it's a bit more difficult to find things. But let's go through. So let's have a look at. I want to open the seniors. Let's see, intermediates, cadets. We're getting there eventually. Scroll. 20 and under. Well, we have a lot of classifications for age groups in Australia. All right. I want crossbow. Wow. Let's do women's this time. Just to do something a little different. So women's recurve barebow for, let's say, we'll take 50 meters. That's average distance. So out of 36 arrows, the record for women's recurve barebow is 300. That's pretty good. So 300. If we take a look at women's longbow at 50 meters, it is 247. We take a look at women's we have compound. That was a recurve. And we do have barebow compound, by the way, in Australia. It's an unusual thing, but we do have that. So women's recurve, 50 meters, 334. That's a pretty big gap. We go to men's. Where's the men's? Jeez, it's men's recurve. So let's take a round. Let's take the 70-70 the 7-7-20. That's the standard Olympic qualifying round. Alec Potts is our bronze medalist from the Rio Games. So he has a national record of 6.87 out of 720. Again, far from perfect. In fact, I think he shot this at the Rio Games, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, 6.87 out of 720 is an exceptionally good recurve score. Nowhere near perfect. If you compare that to men's barebow, again, that would be they don't have a 720, by the way. So that's an Olympic round. We don't have a 720 for barebow. So let's say we take 6720. So it's 60 meters rather than 70 meters. 582. That's still way below the score for Alec Potts at 70 meters. So he shoots further, but it gets about 100 points or 200 points higher than someone shooting 10 meters closer at the same kind of target. We get a men's longbow, and there is, again, no round. So for longbow, the equivalent would be the AA 50-720. So that's 50 meters on the same target face, 543. So it doesn't come anywhere close to Olympic recurve. And I could go through more. Let's do one more. Let's go through the American records for our American viewers out there. So if you take a look at the Americans, and I think I've got a PDF here. So this is a bit more awkward. We'll switch over to our PDF. There we go. I'm going to use this OBS thing. So this is a bit more awkward, but let's look at some stuff. So let's look at say indoor barebow. That'd be interesting if it was. There's indoor recurve. I'm not sure there's indoor barebow. Doesn't matter. All right, let's go back up. So I'm gonna punch in a few things. Let's go for outdoor male recurve. Is that a thing? Yes, it is. Of course, it's a thing. So recurve. Let's look here. Oh, I keep doing this. So recurve bowman, I guess, is the thing. No, that's the wrong category. We want the seniors in America. So there we go. Brady Ellison. So the 1440 round shoots 1368. If you shoot the 70 meter round, Jake Kaminsky shot 346 out of 360. Compare that to and the Olympic round 720. That's 682. We compare that to the barebows. If we can find the barebows, I keep losing track. Outdoor barebow. Oh wait, no. Outdoor male barebow. That's kind of, this looks, that's a weird search, don't mind me. Okay, and again, same rounds, the score's around 300 points lower. Okay, you can see the pattern here. I'm not going to keep on harping on about the records. So my point here is that if we look at the world records and the national records, the barebow and the longbow scores are nowhere close. Now, of course, if you're talking about a local competition where you have a much greater spread of skill levels, you have exceptionally good barebow shooters against relatively new, inexperienced recurve shooters, it's possible they can upset. You should be able, especially at closer distances, the skill gap is a lot less apparent. I've outshot compound shooters, but that's not really me being good. It's them being a lot worse than I am and shooting the wrong 2 arrows. But yeah, the idea that a barebow shooter or someone could bring in like a longbow and compete in the Olympic Games and win is definitely, in the current format of the Olympic Games, not even possible. Mathematically, I'm not even going to bother with that, okay? Realistically, it is not even possible. Because to even get selected for the Olympic Games, you need to have a minimum qualifying score. So you have to actually be selected for your national team, and then you have to be, you need to get a spot for your national team. And the way of the Olympic Games is you earn spots through World Cup and World Championship places. And the Olympic Committee will pick a few wildcard countries to enter. But you can't just bring in a traditional barebow or longbow and actually win. Yeah, you're not going to qualify. And if I believe I'm correct in saying that no non-freestyle shooter has managed to qualify for the freestyle division in any Olympic event. Okay, that's the reality of it. Now, of course, people want barebow shooters to win. That's so romantic. It's like the barebow shooter with wooden bows and arrows beating the fancy space age recurves. That would be a nice story to share, but it's not going to happen. Not in the current format. Now, again, the reality is there are a couple of reasons why this happens. Why the score gap is so large. Even with barebow, modern barebow, one big thing is the simple consistency of sights. Having a sight which you can configure and micro adjust gives you a supreme level of accuracy. This is what people who shoot compound strive for, and to a lesser extent, modern recurve. It's not because they're trying to use a cheat method, they're trying to get as close to perfection as possible. So having something like a sight, having a clicker which minimizes variations in draw, having stabilizers which removes the shake and the instability of the bow, all these things do make a difference. If you're wondering what difference does it make, well, it enables people to break through what some consider a skill ceiling. With barebow, if you're shooting using a point and aim method like your string walking, then that works well for close distances, but there are too many variations at longer distances. If you're doing something like gap shooting, it's even harder because your gap is something that is basically in your mind. It's not like you have a sight in the inside of your eye that can measure the gap between your arrow tip and the target. You will have trouble being consistent in where you place the tip of the arrow. And for those who shoot instinctively, that's something which, if you're a superbly good instinctive shooter, you might be quite effective in close distances like 10, 20, 30 meters. But beyond that, it starts becoming a little more erratic because you're not actually aiming at a point. You're just physically aligning yourself and firing or shooting what feels right. And it feels good when you hit the target. But you're not going to get a perfect score by kind of guesstimating where the thing would be. And that's a crude way to talk about instinctive. I did respect instinctive a lot. But this is, again, we're breaking down that myth that someone who shoots instinctive trad barebow, like the purest of pure archery, can compete in Olympic Games. They're not going to make it. And if they do make it, they'll be missing the target. Probably, for a good barebow, they'll hit the target, but they might miss the entire board, maybe 4 out of 10 shots, and that's not pleasant. And that's being generous. I think many longbow shooters or trad barebow, if you've been shooting a long distance, you're happy if you hit the target. Again, not disparaging you guys, but that is the reality of competition in the Olympic format. I want to take a bit of a break, so I'm going to read through some of the comments in chat, but I also want to take a second part here, and the second part of this discussion is, well, is there a way to make barebow and trad barebow competitive at an Olympic level? So I'm going to take a quick swig of this coffee Coke, which is a very bad time to do so. Yeah, it's not something you want to drink a lot of. Like, it's kind of like coffee, where it's not a white coffee. It's not like milk coffee. So I normally expect to have a creamy texture, because a lot of Asians love the creamy, sweeter coffees. That's a lot of history behind that too. But this is kind of like a black coffee, or dark coffee, kind of mixed in with the Coke. So it has a bit of a kick to it. So you don't want to like scull it. You want to just have a little sip and just let the flavor explode. So let's go back to our chat for a moment here. I don't have a chat window up, but where am I? Okay, so if you want to ask a question right now, feel free to tag my name. This is where I'm going to actually read the chat now, because there are more things we can talk about for barebow. So just from the top very quickly. Nice haircut from actually I don't have a haircut. The haircut was like a month ago. I normally have haircuts between school holidays because I don't have time to get haircut otherwise. I had a shower, so my hair's kind of a bit fuzzy and softer, but it's not a haircut. It's the way it is right now. Let's see. Luke Davis. What can you recommend out of ACs or X10s? Holy crap, this is a good question. Basically, expensive arrow or really expensive arrow. This is one case where having a higher price doesn't mean a better arrow. The X10s and the ACEs are top arrows, but they have slightly different advantages. Basically, the X10's barrel profile and the way it's designed is that it is better when shooting into a crosswind. The narrow profile and the lighter weight make it generally. Sorry again. The X10 is better when shooting at 70 meters in lighter winds because it is a lighter arrow. It should travel faster. It is very good in terms of against the wind compared to bigger carbon arrows or aluminium arrows. The ACEs, I know some people prefer ACEs for windy conditions. I might get this the wrong way around. Hang on, let me rephrase that. No, other way around. The ACEs are often preferred in less windy conditions. The X10s have very good profile for windy day shooting, but for people shooting short distance or for field, ACEs are often preferred by people because if you're not shooting in a windy condition, you don't need that performance in wind. So ACEs are very good arrows, and many people just shoot ACEs for everything. That's completely fine. But if you're trying to min-max or maximize your performance at long distance, it's kind of like 70 meters, Olympic style. X10s are good for default, but ACEs are good for everything else. And some people have a set of both. So on the day, they can choose if it's windy, ACEs. Sorry, X10s. If it's not windy, ACEs. Do bear in mind that the X10 Pro Tools are different. X10 Pro Tools are meant for compound, not recurve. The Pro Tools are not barreled, they're completely straight, so they're meant for compound. So that's going to be confusing there, but I got mixed up in my head. It's 12:30, so I'm a little hazy on that, even with the Coke coffee. Heramain, where did you buy your Doinka Platinum High mods? If I recall correctly, I bought direct from Doinka. I didn't wait for a shop to stock it. I bought direct from Doinka. Expensive, but I thought, why the heck not, really? Let's see. 8-bit Archer, am I doubting the supremacy of stick fighting? No, of course I am. Let's have a look here. What other questions do we have? Morbits. I saw competitive archery on TV the other day. It was the finals and so many misses. Some shots hit the blue. I saw a Korean miss once. No, twice actually. It was I can't remember which championship it was. It was quite a while ago. It was like a 2007 tournament or something, and I think it was Kibo Bay versus another Korean in the final, and it was a really windy day, and both of them completely missed the target. It looked almost intentional, like one missed and the other one just missed to give them a fighting chance, but it was pretty horrific. Like seeing a Korean miss on a yeah, it's I swear this is real. I'm not making it up. No one will believe me. Okay. Oh, Northy. I was at an indoor Portsmouth comp yesterday and I saw a comp. I just missed the bus. A Portsmouth is pretty close range, so missing is very hard, but it happens sometimes, especially when you look at amateur level. It's again like it's really important to distinguish between the pro level or the top level and everybody else. You got to be careful about that. Let's see. Not too many questions. Let's see. Well, these questions aren't for me. That's cool. Talk to each other. That's fine. I ignore this comment. Grizzly Jim should be working instead of lounging around watching YouTube. Now, in fairness, if you're making Grizzly strings, it's kind of automatic. Like you don't really need to kind of be fully focused. Just like watch something or listen to something while working on your strings. Although I do wish Grizzly Jim made more videos. All right. Daniel Lisi, what is the purpose? You can't compare traditional sport to modern sport and modern rules. You're right. The reason why I'm doing this is because some people, and this is like a vocal minority, but I've seen it on Reddit, I've seen it in other comments, they really hang on to the idea that traditional can compete against modern. And they can't. And I just want to objectively and factually prove it using stats and figures, which is undeniable. And yeah, like as much as it seems to be a very obvious, well, of course they can't compete. Again, for someone who thinks logically, understands the archery disciplines as they are right now, we know that it's not going to happen. A Barebow would not beat a modern recurve shooter, but some people really think that there is a Howard Hill, Green Arrow, Hawkeye, Lars Anderson, hybrid that could do so, and they can't. It's not even close. Especially now that it's a Lars Anderson season, people are watching Lars and saying, "Oh wow, he can beat every archer." We know he can't. He might be able to shoot me from around the corner, but he probably can't hit the target at 70 meters. That's a very different skill set. So when you're comparing these things, just understand that what people actually compete as is not as easy as it looks, and archery is one of the sports where it looks easy. I think the only other exception, the only other similar sport which has this perceived ease is shooting. If you look at people who do like 50-meter prone or something, or 25-meter prone, for air rifle, this seems so simple. Like you're shooting a rifle from a prone position. What's so hard about it? Well, how many people get perfect scores? It's still challenging. And that's the thing, you don't have to impress people, it's still very challenging. And yeah, like 8-Bit Archer said, there is a bit of a myth about in certain circles where this sort of thing can be an upset, that Barebow can win. But it depends on where you're from. Let's look here. Yeah, as 8-Bit mentioned, I'm looking at target records because that's the Olympic format. If you look at field or look at 3D, the results would actually be quite similar. I think Grizzly Jim, you can probably testify this because you were at the 3D World Championships in Rebellion, and you were facing against some of the best gap shooters and string walkers, and you'll be shooting instinctive, and the quality of the shot is very, very different. And I really think Jim, just to jump in here, it is a different ball game when you're shooting instinctive against people who actually shoot bare bow. And don't even think about compound instant, like X right there, doesn't count. But yeah, like it's not it's not as easy. And take it from Jim, who was with the world's best. It's just not this. It's not as easy as it looks. But yeah, like again, like I'm using the World Archery target records and other target records, but the gap should be the same. Because again, with the equipment, you expect high results because you can. Even if you shoot field under IFAA rules or whatever rules that you use, it's going to be similar. That difference is there. There've just been more classes, and just the examples here on the chat. You have more like flat bows and long bows and other bare bows and more specific things. But the gap between modern recurve and trad recurve should be the same, no matter what discipline you shoot or what competition rules. Speaking of competition rules, one of the funny things was watching the Lancaster Classic, because they use they don't use the World Archery Barebow rules. So you see barebows with kind of longish stabilizers. So it's kind of funny because there's no sights, but they do have stabilizer rods. Not really long ones, but they do have rods. But for someone who doesn't shoot that sort of discipline, it's kind of funny. Okay, so let's go back to a few questions, and then we'll move on to our second part there. Arnis, a question for me. Wow, okay. What is your opinion on Barebow? Do you enjoy it? My opinion of Barebow, it's for the same reason why a lot of people love Barebow. I really like Barebow because it's simple. It's so relaxing to shoot barebow because you place less expectation on yourself. You have to work harder to target, yes, but you place less expectation on yourself, because when I shoot Olympic recurve, it's stressful. I want to hit the bullseye. I want to hit the spider or the X every single shot. It's kind of like with Olympic recurve, you have compound expectations, but recurve standards. You want to shoot as well as possible, and your coach will push you to shoot very high scores. Barebow is something that is a lot more easygoing, and yeah, you can accept and justify to yourself that you're not going to shoot that well. So when I'm having a bad day, or when I know I'm not going to shoot seriously, I bring out the barebow. It's kind of like the fun bow, and I've got several now, including Grizzly Jim's bear takedown, which is an amazing bow, one of the best I've ever handled. Dream bow. I mean, to me, the bear takedown is when I shoot the bear takedown, it's like when I shoot the Win Nano TFT. It's like the dream sensation when you shoot it. It's just so nice, and that's what I like about barebow. Just having a barebow, it just takes your mind off things, and I really do enjoy it. I do want to spend some time doing more barebow. Like I want to work my technique a bit more, like things on my anchor, my back tension, a bit harder when you don't have a clicker. But that's a skill kind of shift which I'll work on at some point. Let's see. Daniel Lees again. There is Barebow and there is instinctive recurve under WA. Yes, in field and 3D, the instinctive classification is different from the Barebow classification. The main difference is in instinctive, you can't string walk. So there are particular rules which say that you can use the Mediterranean grip, but you can't have your fingers like any more than like 2 inches below the knock or something. And there are other special rules, but instinctive basically means that you can't you can't use any aiming method. You can gap, because there's no rule against gapping, but you can't string walk or face walk. That's basically the idea. The rules are worded so you're not meant to face walk or string walk. Interesting history in that, because in some ways in some ways, like the reason why we have instinctive as a classification and barebow is separate is that purism, that traditionalism, where people feel that aiming is kind of cheap and you want to shoot instinctive, and gapping is kind of instinctive with a bit of a aim involved. But the rules are there for a reason. Let's look here. Alex Noodles, as a starting archer, I presume it's okay to start straight away with a clicker. Yeah. I don't think straight away, like day one, is necessary. You should learn to shoot without the clicker. The clicker can ruin your process and break you if you're not trained to use it correctly, especially if you're self-taught. That's terrible. You should have someone oversee how you set the clicker up and then watch how you use it, so expanding it and controlling it. The more experienced you become, the finer you control. But when you're starting out, you often have a very erratic anchor point. So sometimes the click is quite useless. So I recommend you actually have an anchor point first, and once you have a reasonable level of consistency, then use the clicker. The clicker will show you what the level is, but again, you need to get it set up. So just I wouldn't rush into it, but the sooner you use it, the better. Torvald, the polar bear. Do you have any experience with long draw lengths in recurve? I draw 33 pound. Sorry, 33 inch. You have very long arms. Go for 72 inch bow. The 70-inch bow is a step up from the normal 68 inch, but a 33 inch draw is very long. I go for 72. Go for 27-inch riser, long limbs. That's perfect for you. Daryl Howard, what are your thoughts on a plunger button for new archer's bow? I have one. The one of the big reasons why you want to get a plunger, especially for a target bow, is you want to push the arrow away from the riser. Can you shoot with the arrow directly on the rest and against the riser? Yes, but there will be clearance issues. A good example of this, when I reviewed the Toe Point R2, there was no plunger, and the rest didn't come with a makeshift plunger, that little tab which pushes the arrow away. So there were quite a lot of clearance issues, so the arrow doesn't clear the bow, and therefore it would not shoot accurately on target. So you really want to get a plunger. Even if it's not well tuned, having a plunger on a target bow is better than none, and you will see a general improvement. Let's see. I have to define what tradition means. Look, traditional can mean a lot of things. I'm actually playing a video where I actually talk about what the meaning of traditional is, because people understand different things about traditional. Traditional can mean like a metal bow and metal limbs, but you shoot with no sights. That might be attractive to some people. But the point being is more like your wooden bow, your stick bow can't compete against modern recurve, no matter how hard they try. Even if the modern bow shot half a round and like went home for the day, they'll probably still win. Let's see. Just reading through my comments very quickly again. Good question from Ran Roafeason. Do you believe that WA should have barebow, instinctive bow, and longbow divisions part of target? Okay, I might save that for a bit later, because I want to talk about the second part, which is there any way we can include barebow instinctive into into Olympic disciplines? Just find anything else. Fast loader 456. Do you find archery spiritually and mentally relaxing? No, I don't actually. This may seem to be a contradiction. Depends on what I'm shooting. If I'm shooting barebow, I find that relaxing. I find Olympic recurve to be the opposite. I don't actually find it enjoyable. I enjoy it, but I enjoy it because I push myself to succeed and break personal best. It's why I do archery, and this is why when people say you should do this, I ignore that. You do what makes you happy. People do things for a reason. I am not an elite competitor, but I want to compete. So my goal is to shoot rounds and get scores. I don't share this passion or to share this goal with other people, so I push myself to shoot better and better, and I do so using Olympic recurve equipment, and that's a pressure thing. I find that if I don't put pressure myself, then I don't do anywhere near as well. I get too lax on that. But I don't find it relaxing. I find it satisfying. Relaxing, it's not the first word I would use. Roger Paul, have I ever shot an English longbow? I actually haven't. I've had the chance to meet people who make them and shoot them, but I personally haven't. I would have liked to, yeah, of course. Honestly, everybody at some point. Hades the Man, do you have any experience of a strange phenomenon where people give up on recurve and shoot barebow? Yes. Yes, I haven't seen some of my club actually make the shift because most people choose consciously to shoot bare bow or recurve. But yeah, I have heard of this phenomenon where yeah, some people find recurve to be, like I said, stressful. Like there is high demand, but the other reason is a lot of people who do archery don't imagine Olympic recurve as archery. They do archery because they want to do traditional. And I was the same actually. When I started archery like 6 years ago, I thought archery was like Robin Hood. There was shooting a traditional wooden bow. And I started with bare bow recurve because all beginners shoot bare bow first. And I thought, oh yeah, this is as good as it gets. I'm gonna buy a nice bare bow. I'm gonna practice and shoot instinctive and that sort of thing. Like many people, this is why I'm actually quite passionate about talking about bare bow and instinctive because I think if I didn't actually do archery, I would be that keyboard warrior who would talk about how the Mongolian bows are the best and the English longbows were awesome and instinctive is the way to go and blah blah Olympic space age material crap. I would probably be that person if I wasn't educated and I wasn't aware of different styles. So I think that when people talk about instinctive being the best, I think one, it's a passion thing, but for those who don't actually shoot and just want to comment, it's an ignorance thing, not in a bad way, but because you don't know how hard it actually is, then you can't really comment. You just go with what it looks like rather than what it actually is. And having shot Olympic recurve, it's hard. It's really hard, and you really do admire the people who are athletes who do this as a regular thing. But yeah, that's kind of my opinion there. All right. Um, Ooh, good stuff. I'm just skipping through some stuff. I think I've answered most of the current questions. Um, Iron Pirate. Is there much difference between a modern trad bow and Olympic recurve, except the wood rise and wood laments? Um, there is a difference. Even if you put sight and stabilizers in a wooden bow, the thing with you have to use a shooting machine. Basically, put the bows into a rig and shoot them off a machine. Like there's no human input. There will be a difference. The way the arrows interact with the bow, how to perform in the wind, their velocity, the consistency of the straightness of material. So a wooden shaft is not made to the same standard as a factory-made carbon aluminium alloy. And the bow itself, a wooden bow will have less vibration control than a modern recurve, even with the sight and stabilizers. I mean, if you start putting sight and stabilizers on a wooden bow, you'll see a closer match. But again, there will be differences. One big thing with wooden bows, long bows or otherwise, is fluctuations in heat. The temperature on the day will affect the material and the performance of the wood, and using the bow after a while will also affect the heat of the bow. So if you haven't shot it and it's the first shot, it's a cold shot, whereas if you use it after a few dozen shots, it'll perform differently. There are just more variations, and imagine a day where it's hot and cold and rainy and humid. It will have a much bigger impact on a wooden bow or wooden limbs. Modern bows, which are aluminium or carbon, are basically immune to this. So there's going to be huge differences. Or most of them are subtle, but these are like one percenters which accumulate to the point where if you put an aluminium Hoyt bow into a shooting machine compared to a wooden bare bow, then the modern Hoyt bow should outshoot the traditional bow. I don't have any stats with me, but that's basically what I believe many coaches and engineers have discovered. And that's why the shift is towards metal and carbon. I mean, these are more expensive materials, which more precise manufacturing, but you get a much higher performing bow that is more consistent. That's really the difference between Olympic recurve and traditional recurve. Hope that answers your question. That was a really good question, and at some point someone has to say so, but there is a question there. Question from Disgruntled Mass. Well, for me, yeah, for Northie actually. Does okay? So when you try to relax, I still feel quite anxious when shooting, I guess. Does it get better after a while? To an extent, yes. If once you get comfortable with your technique and you're just shooting with a clear mind, yes. I find anxiety kicks in when you're stressed about learning something new and you're doing something unfamiliar. So if you're learning a new technique or you're using a new piece of equipment and you're not sure about yourself, then that's when anxiety can really spike. And for somebody who suffers from anxiety, I understand what it feels like, because you kind of like, you want to do your thing, but archery is meant to solve that, but it doesn't, because it causes anxiety because you're shooting poorly and you don't know why, you get flustered. So it can be a bit of a doom spiral. And I find at times you have to reset. So basically, don't worry about shooting rounds, don't worry about shooting long distance. Just shoot at a blank target, just hammer it, just let it go. Disney copyright infringement. Whoa, man, so many questions, I can't keep up. This is great, by the way. I'm glad you're enjoying this, for all you watching this. Let's see. Lucas Cabellos. Am I skipping a question here? No, I'm good. Yeah, I haven't tried the Win RCX. No. The RCX is somewhat of an older bow. Unless you're talking about the Black Wolf. That was also an RCX, the RCX 17. Unless I'm missing my letters up, because RCX stands for Royal Cross Carbon. So I have done the Black Wolf. That's what we're talking about, because they do have the Target RCX and the previous Hunting RCX, which is the Black Wolf. Okay. McJaws, do you think going the Barebow route will be overall cheaper than Olympic over time? Yeah. The bow itself, well, depends on what bow you get, right? Because you can get a really cheap Barebow and you don't buy the accessories. But a lot of people who shoot Barebow will buy a luxury Barebow. I mean, sure, you could shoot your same age, but then when you hold a bear takedown, thanks Jim, that's like $1,000. And holy crap, that is a good bow. And then you buy another bow, and then you buy another bow, because they are so good. Each bow feels different, have personalities. So you don't end up buying, like when you buy Olympic recurve, you buy one bow and you buy a lot of accessories. When you shoot Barebow, you buy many good bows. You just collect them. Just look at any like trad channel. They've got like 10 bows, like in the background, right? Yeah, think like Jeff Kavanagh. Look at the Knocking Point. Like you see his rack of bows, which you can't can't pick which bow to use. It's great to watch because like everybody has bows. I'm getting there too. I got some like bare bows in my back room. I don't even use them because I shoot Olympic recurve, but people send me bare bows, which is fun. So yeah, I think Barebow, it's actually cheaper to start off with, but you know you'll buy a new bow every season or two. All right. All right, sorry about that. All right, Lucas, Target RCX. No, I haven't tried the RCX 100, the Target version, so no. Okay, so it's been nearly an hour into the stream. I want to conclude this with, I mentioned before that the second part of this is there a way to make Barebow or trad recurve relevant in modern competition or Olympic competition? Is there a way? I had some ideas, and let's be realistic. At the moment, the most likely discipline to make it into Olympic competition, apart from recurve, which is the default format, the more likely one is compound. Because compound is the other alternative discipline, which is a world championship level. Sorry, so yeah, like the normal outdoor target is compound and recurve. And if there was any reason for the IOC to accept another archery event, is to have compound, because World Archery already has a compound outdoor target competition. That will be the most likely inclusion, and they're having a hell of a time trying to get it through. And there are reasons, things like logistics and events and all that. But yeah, like trying to expand and add events is really hard at the Olympic Games. And compound, I think it has an appeal. I think it stands up on its own. It is a very competitive format at the World Championships and World Cups. So that would be likely be the next thing. If there's any chance, it'd be compound. But the question was Barebow and Trad Barebow. Is there a way to make it to make it work in an Olympic Games? In my opinion, there are two ways to go about making Barebow and instinctive or whatever traditional work in the Olympic Games. One is to reduce the distance at a level where Barebow shooters or trad shooters can compete on a competitive footing, and this might be 30 meters on a small target or 40 meters on a smaller target, because at 70 meters many people simply miss the target. And as fun as it is to watch a Barebow shooter hit gold at 70 meters, it's anti-fun. And that's the thing, it's anti-fun for spectators to watch people miss. And that's something which is prone to happen often when shooting Barebow. And Barebow shooters, you know this. You know to be true, to search your feelings. So I think that to be competitive, it's like having a shorter distance match play. Because with Barebow, anything can happen. Just look at the 3D World Championships. A lot of the rounds were decided on the back of the Barebow and the longbow shooters for the teams. But the compound would hit gold, like hit the dead center all the time. But the Barebows were quite good, but it was actually the longbow which made the difference from a lot of the matches, because either they hit the middle or they just skimmed the target, got the minimum points. So it was really erratic. Even at a close distance target, it's quite erratic. So you kind of want to remove too much of that variation, that erraticness, that sort of thing, I guess, and make it competitive. Now, the other way to make it work in a highly competitive format is to introduce field or 3D archery as an Olympic event. And I want to give credit for people who shoot this sort of thing, because that's where I think Barebow, traditional or instinctive work best. It's kind of like the root of the sport was field and 3D, hunting or otherwise. Now 3D probably won't work in the Olympic Games because people associate, oh, you're shooting at animals and therefore it's really bad. That's why at the 3D game or the 3D championships in Roubaix and Avignon, the creatures that were used were often more like other extinct creatures, or they were fantasy, because again, having a sport which actually shoots animals or animal effigies is bad. People don't like that because, oh, it's hunting, it's really bad. So you're shooting at gargoyles, or you're shooting at Tasmanian tigers, which are already extinct. And my favorite was watch the 3D World Championships, and Jim, you're probably laughing at this too. My favorite target at the 3D World Championship was the giant clam. I can't describe it to you now. It's like you have this huge like clam, like this like huge thing like that, yeah. And there are two like pearls, and those are the targets. I can imagine, like, because the competitors haven't seen this before, like they haven't seen the arrangement of the targets, and you see like you can't see the target until you're caught up, but you get like a photograph on the stands. You can see the target and the hit zones, and you can see the guys going. Like the target here, like what are you kind of looking at the clam, and you walk across, and the clam's like that big, and that was such a tiebreaker. Like you see so many of the teams who are shooting at the clams, like it was so hard to hit. So that's hilarious. Would it be fun to watch in Olympic Games? Yeah, sure. But yeah, I don't think it'll make it. I think field has the best chance. 3D is at the moment a separate discipline in World Archery, and I don't think that will make it Olympic Games. Field has the best chance. The last time we saw field in a big event covered by World Archery was the World Masters Games. Sorry, the World Games in Poland. That was the probably the last time we saw a major field event. And it was actually interesting to see the field discipline shoot. But I think that again, the only way to make it viable as an Olympic sport would be if we were able to introduce a field event. So you have target outdoor and field outdoor, or field, which is, or outdoor anyway. It's in a similar way where you have like track cycling and road cycling, and it's BMX and so on. So there's different disciplines of the same event. And yeah, I'd say the same. If archery has a chance to expand, it would be to not necessarily like, will include compound and recurve in the outdoor target. And for barebow, that will probably be best suited for a field style tournament. I think having a barebow competition in the outdoor format, as close as it could be for competitors, I don't think that's the best showcase of barebow. I think if you're in an unmarked field and you're shooting on a course, then that should be more legitimate in the eyes of many archery purists, and I think that would unify a lot of the different divisions within archery, where you have Olympic recurve and barebow and so on. So could it work? I don't know, man. I think like if people put the effort in, and the organizers are willing to take the risk, it could work. And when you start doing it, you increase the awareness and the appeal of the sport. So you see field archery grow, you see 3D archery grow. So that'd be a nice way to promote different styles, I think. Not being an elitist, of course not, but I think that's the best way to make it work. But yeah, like, you know, trying to introduce one event into Olympic Games is tough. Trying to introduce like 3 different disciplines and a whole different course, that's nearly impossible. So I'd say unlikely. We can wish, and I think, to be fair, I do want to see more people compete in barebow and longbow and traditional whatever. I think the more chances people get to compete, the better. But that's the reality situation. Is a lot of it's driven by commercialism, how much appeal it has in the mass market, and one of the big factors is the worldwide appeal. Do we have enough competitive barebow shooters to justify it? I mean, it's kind of like the catch-22 or that paradox, right? It's like to have an event, you need to have enough people worldwide who will compete in the event. But you can't get that critical mass unless you have a way to promote that event. And unless World Archery has a way to really pump up field archery as a discipline and make it viable as an elite world competition, it's not going to be easy to put it into the Olympic Games structure. But as in many sports, the Olympic Games isn't necessarily the elite competition. Like the World Championships are normally the more elite. The Olympic Games is more recognized, but the World Championships are normally the main thing. So whatever format you have, the World Championships is probably it. But more competition is a good thing. Okay, I'll take my last batch of questions, and I think I'll end it for the night. It's now 1:10 a.m. Hopefully you had a chance to enjoy the stream. So let's get back to what I picked up there. Ray Maru, what did you think about warbows with ridiculous draw weights? Depends on which ones you're talking about. If you're talking about the English longbows, then it's the reason why you need very high draw weights is for the longbows. It's because they're not as efficient. A compact short bow or horse bow that has like maybe a 60 or 80 pound draw it's probably going to be as effective compared to a longbow. So you kind of need the extra draw because the way the design was much easier to manufacture because it's plain wood, whereas the composite bows were wood, horn, bone laminate with sinew and glue. So they were much harder to make, but they're more high quality, and they were basically like a lot of the features, like the CRs on the horse bows, were based on like compound cams. So like there were more advanced designs, so they could shoot more efficiently for less effective draw weight. So it's ridiculous. It's just it's institutionalized more than ridiculous. To have a whole society, I'm talking about English longbows here, to have a whole society mandated by law to train, so that you have a constant stream of ready to fight population. So if you want to call a campaign and raid France, then you can just call up a few thousand archers who are already trained. It's kind of like the idea. It's like a militia. Like if you have a trained militia, then when you go to war, you can call up people and you have a fighting force. And because archery was such a specialized discipline, the average person could not shoot a war bow. But when you have everybody shooting bows every Sunday, then you have like a whole population of longbowmen. That's pretty cool. That to me is more impressive than the draw weight. I'm not so sold on the weight itself. That's different. But when a country has that much manpower available, then it is incredible. It's also why the longbow fell out of use. It's because you couldn't maintain a standing army of longbowmen. You had to like recruit them, and after a while, people stopped doing it. But yeah, it's interesting. But yeah, a lot of the really notable bows weren't that strong. Like people think about the Japanese Yumi, they were only about 40 pounds. It wasn't that heavy because they weren't intended for like penetrating armor. It's more as a barrage weapon, and for close range horseback archery. So you're riding enclosed and shooting at unarmored targets, not trying to punch through samurai armor. Norvi, good question here. The R6 100 has been rebranded as the Winners FC 100. That's nice to know. I didn't know that. Same sort of thing. 8-bit Archer, what are my thoughts on the Hoyt Satori? A lot of people are asking about it because the Satori was meant to replace the Hoyt trad bows, or the bear bows, whatever, the Dorado and the Tiburon and so on. I haven't used one. I don't know. I really don't know, because the thing with the Hoyt bows is that they use a lot of the same technology and features as the Olympic bows, but basically packaged in a trad hunting style bow. I imagine it'd be really good. But it's I have no idea. Was that a Star Wars quote? I've got a bad feeling about this. Let's see. Yeah, in terms of like instinctive becoming gapping, I don't think you can stop it. This is why the rules in the World Archery 3D and Field make a distinction between barebow and instinctive, because it's a bit easier to codify rules which prevent barebow. It prevent string walking and face walking, because those require different finger placements. So you can say we can't do that, therefore we can stop that. Instinctive, arguably, a lot of people shooting instinctive aren't shooting instinctively. They're actually gapping, whether they do it consciously or not. So it will turn to gapping. I don't think that's a bad thing, because in the end, like you're still shooting in a natural way. You're gonna aim. If you're gonna hit a target and be competitive, you've got to aim. You can't just like let it go and hope it hits a target, or use a predator bow and zoom it in like in Assassin's Creed Origins, which I'm loving the game, by the way. But yeah, it's I don't think that's actually a bad thing. But yeah, you can't prove if someone's shooting instinctive. You can't say, "Hang on, you're aiming. Stop that." Doesn't work that way. I mean, there are some rules about things like not having markings on the back of your bow. That's why some bow manufacturers have very plain limbs, because you can't, like, the words or the letters or the decals on the limbs might be used as a way to sight. So and the rise especially, you can't have marking. So there are ways around it which the rules have codified. Got a bit ridiculous, but people work around the rules, and that's kind of why it's the way it is. Let's see. I'm trying to find questions that are aimed at me here. The 3-bow challenge. Yeah, that'd be fun. Like, that would never be an Olympic event. Because that's a fun firearm challenge, and it's there for a reason too. I tried it with the bows, and that's fun. Like shooting 3 different bows is fun. It wouldn't be an Olympic event, but it'd be a fun challenge to do. Okay, just trying to get the chat back up here. And messages aren't for me. Okay, that's fine. Good stuff, I think. Okay, well, I think we've reached the end of the stream. It is now 1:17 a.m. and we've covered the main question, and hopefully that's shown you why, objectively, why Barebow simply cannot win against Olympic recurve. Again, for most of us, it's already really obvious why. That's why we have different disciplines and they compete against each other. But again, for this is more for the people who think that they might win or they might stand a chance. The reality is absolutely not. They do not stand a snowflake's chance in hell of beating a competent Olympic recurve. It's you might hate it, you might find it boring, but it's evolved to the point where they shoot accurately at smaller targets at further distances. And even then, they still don't reach perfection. And if a modern bow with all the tools and gadgets and assistance can't get perfection, what hope does a longbow have? So hopefully that answers your questions and that kind of gets you thinking about the way things are. All these styles can coexist, and I think every style has a chance to compete in some way. But if you're thinking about trying to make barebow work in competition, you need to think about making a competition which would suit the barebow's strengths and heritage. It's not going to work at 90 meters because you're not going to hit the target at 90 meters, whereas someone shooting compound would have more expectation to do so. But anyway, archery is archery. There are lots of ways to go about doing it. And hopefully this will kind of settle down that animosity between styles, and people don't go, oh, this is boring or this is crap, kind of anything. The whole point is archery should be fun, so do what you enjoy. I think that should cover the rest of the stream. Oh, one more question. What's with my anchor? The problem, I have two problems with the anchor. I'll answer this one question quickly because I have no time to do so. The problem with my anchor with Barebow is that I use the wrong kind of tab. The tabs I use are Olympic style tabs. They've got a very big ledge, so I can't anchor if I'm scraping my face. So because when I demonstrate things, I don't have a spare tab with me. That's what I use. It still works, by the way. I still shoot like consistently, but I don't have a particularly good anchor. I have to work on that with my glove or a different tab. But that's something which I don't practice. So when you don't practice and use the wrong tab, then it's not going to be good. Anyway, that is the last question for the night. Thank you everyone for watching, and I'll see you next time.